was not there. You had Andrew
Right.
Rupchich, who is a backup. Lloyd Cushenberry will probably be off of PUP this week, but you had Corey Levin, who's a backup. So you got 2 out of 5 backups on your side too. So again, like I said, man, any win that you could take on the offensive line wise, if I'm the Titans, I'm taking that as a W, and I'm just looking to build upon that. I think that's the best thing to do.
And TD, we've even seen that the offensive line the last couple of years have struggled in preseason games. I remember, I think it was the Patriots preseason game at home 2 years ago where Mike Vrabel had Andre Dillard playing into the third quarter because he wasn't pleased with the way he was playing. It's like you had your starting left tackle playing with the 2s and 3s deep into a preseason game just to try and get him right. Like Dan Moore, as much as the numbers may have not been great last year, he looked the part on Saturday night, albeit small sample size against backups, but it really is nice to see Titans tackles look the part in a preseason game where you're expected to pretty much dominate and give your quarterback clean pockets, and they did exactly that.
Yeah, and that pocket, like you mentioned, on that 27-yard completion, I mean, good gracious. It as I watched that play, it took me back to the combine when Cameron Ward, he was asked about holding the ball too long. And he was like, if I don't have pressure and I'm able to hang in the pocket and give my guys extra time to get open, what's wrong with that? You know what I mean? And he's 100% right. That's exactly what he did there. I'm not sure the snap to throw time, but I would imagine it was a good 3 seconds or so. And those are the types of things that you want to be able to have as a play caller too, because now, like, if I'm Brian Callahan, I'm like, okay, you know what? Half of this play call sheet is actually available to me again because I can actually get the daggone protection to have guys run routes that might take a little bit longer to develop instead of always having to go to the short passing game and DBs knowing, hey, I know my guy's going to get home before I even have to truly cover. So I could sit on top of this and maybe take some chances I normally wouldn't because I know that they're not going to have time to double move or do any of that stuff anyway because of how terrible the offensive line is.
Yeah, and you mentioned looking back to the combine for Cam Ward, it reminded me of, was it in the bowl game or late in the season where Cam Ward was just sitting back there and just let his feet stop moving? Like, that's obviously not something you want. Like, you want your quarterback to keep his footwork consistent, but where he just goes flat-footed and then makes a throw because he had so much time back there, that was what it made me think of. That it's nice when you have a quarterback like Cam Ward who he's poised back there, he's relaxed, that he actually had the time to sit back there, make his reads, and make a strong throw. And it was good to see that, especially after that first drive where we mentioned on that third down, he probably had more time than he thought, where he saw the stunt. He kind of bailed out to the right. If he stood in there and looks over the middle, Calvin Ridley's wide open. Like, it was good to see maybe some development there of, okay, I trust my offensive line. They're going to give me time, and I can make this play deep down the field.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that's what you like to see, man. A guy be able to have that, and not all the time, but from time to time, you know, that arrogant arm strength, right? Where it's like he knows, I know I can make this throw, and I don't really need to put my whole core into it. I'm just going to chill out, make the throw, and run over to the sideline, high five, and keep it moving, you know? And you love to see that type of stuff.
Yeah, good to see from the offensive line. And you mentioned Kevin Zeitler wasn't out there. Lloyd Cushenberry wasn't out there. Chance that we see Lloyd Cushenberry this week, and that would be a huge step in the right direction for this offensive line, because we've seen for the Titans, yeah, tackles are obviously the most important position on that offensive line. But you remember the 7-game losing streak a couple years ago for the Titans, that kind of coincided for when Ben Jones went out for the season. So having a good center is so important. And Corey Levin is solid. Like, I don't think anybody feels like it's a massive hole when Corey Levin is out there. But if you can get Lloyd Cushenberry and he is healthy and he is back to his old self, which coming off an Achilles injury, it's never going to be easy. But if you can get that 5 out there that you feel good about, this Titans offensive line could go from being a massive negative for this team to maybe being a slight positive.
No doubt, Jake. And it's funny you mentioned Cushenberry. We were over there. So I managed to get there for the last 5 minutes of the Bucs the Bucks practice, right? And so we're there, and the practice is over, and we all came together, and we were standing on the sideline, and across the field they had the little thing set up where Cam was going to speak, right? And so Everett comes over to us, and he's like, "Hey, man, you guys got to hustle over there because they're about to run sprints." And Cushenberry happened to be right next to me, and he started running. And I looked, and I had to, take it back to a little bit, back to 2000. And I had to put the Jets on him a little bit. I said, ain't no way I'm letting somebody with a bad will beat me to my destination. And he was like, hey, man, this will ain't bad. So that lets you know that he's ready to come back. So it's going to be pretty cool seeing him out there if he does get to get out there this week.
Right. And I remember, was it right after the season, like locker room cleanout day, you guys talked to Lloyd, and I think he said that he felt like he was in a really good spot, that he felt, honestly, I think the timetable honestly had him on track to be ready for the start of training camp. So to give him a couple extra weeks is important because an Achilles injury, as we've seen in all sports for a lot of different players, it can really be a career changer. But I think if they're willing to put him out there for these Atlanta joint practices, it shows you that they think he's in a really good spot, because it could make sense to be like, hey, the competition's going to be up a notch in these joint practices. Let's hold him back until we get back to Nashville. If they do put him out the next couple days, I think that shows that they feel like he's in a good spot to be ready for the regular season.
Yeah, and if they do put him out there, I just want to see like how much work they allow him to get, because you, of course, want to see him be able to come back from injury, but you want to avoid a Kevin Winston Jr. situation where you have the inevitable soreness after a surgery, right? But you also want to make sure that the athlete himself, so thirsty to get back, doesn't overdo it and put himself in a situation where it's like, all right, I need to rest now. So we'll see how that works.
Yeah, going to be interesting this week. Brian Callahan said last week that Cushenberry more likely than L'Jarius Sneed to come off the PUP list this week, and the Titans getting ready for joint practices down in Atlanta starting tomorrow ahead of preseason game number 2 with the Falcons. Coming up next, we do have to talk about the other rookie quarterback performances over the weekend, because that's what Cam Ward is going to be compared to. Shedeur Sanders made his debut. Jackson Dart made his debut. Tyler Shuck made his debut. We'll look around, see how they compare. Obviously, we have to make sure we're comparing fairly here, because those guys played a lot more than Cam Ward did, but we will get into that coming up next. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. If you want to text or call, we'd love to hear from you. Our phone line's driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. This September, Tim McGraw will be performing at Trinitix Rock the Cradle in Nashville, a meaningful event supporting newborns and moms at Ascension St. Thomas Midtown. Get your tickets now at rockthecradlenashville.org. Jake Lyman, Teron Davenport, Connor Newton, next man up here on 1025 The Game. This week's Nashville's best deal is Fat Bottom Brewing Company. Join Fat Bottom this Saturday for their Lucky 13 anniversary party at 800 44th Avenue North in Nashville. It's a full day of casino-themed fun, live tattoos from Black 13, face painting, balloon art game, and, of course, ice-cold beer. Get a $100 gift card half off while supplies last at thegamenashville.com/deals. Plus, don't miss their Lucky 13 anniversary party this Saturday at Fat Bottom Brewing Company. Jake Lyman, Teron Davenport, Connor Newton, next man up here on 102.5 The Game, recapping the Titans' 29-7 loss to Tampa Bay on Saturday in preseason game number 1. Talked a lot about Cam Ward, and Ward had a solid debut. 5 of 8, 67 yards, ended the day with a touchdown drive going 65 yards on 10 plays. But the talk of the NFL, TD, is Shedeur Sanders. After he went, I believe it was 14 of 23, ended up with 2 touchdowns on the day for the Browns in a win against the Carolina Panthers. And I do want to give Shedeur Sanders his flowers because I watched every throw he made. There's a video on YouTube. I didn't get to watch the game live, but I went back, watched every throw that he made, and he did look good. Like, those 2 touchdown throws were not easy. Those were tight window throws. And so I'm excited for Shedeur Sanders that he had a good day. But anybody who's comparing Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward, I think, needs to understand that it's not apples to apples because Sanders played the better part of 3 quarters in the game while Cam Ward went out for just 2 series.
Yeah, and there's something to be said about getting warm and getting into the feel and the flow of the game. And that's exactly what both Cameron Ward and especially Shedeur Sanders said. I mean, he talked about just being able to get into that groove after having not played in a game in so long. Remember, these guys haven't played since December, January.
Right.
So it's been a while since they've been in a game. And I think once that after that first drive, both of those guys, and we're talking about Shedeur specifically, you start to see him just kind of get into that rhythm, get into that feel. And you got to remember, he's a very rhythmic, systematic type of quarterback, and he can go off structure when need be, but he's more of like that pocket passer that a lot of these GMs have wanted for so long. And that's why it's just funny to me how he didn't get drafted till the 5th round, but that's a different discussion.
Chip from Mount Juliet on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyUnit.com, says they've decided to erect a statue outside of the stadium for Shedeur Sanders after his preseason game number 1. It is true that the Cleveland fans, they're excited about Shedeur Sanders, but I do want to point out that he's still probably not the top guy on the depth chart, even after that performance on Friday night.
And that text is the Shedeur Sanders experience in a nutshell to me, because I've never seen a prospect where people get so upset about any degree of success. Why does that statement have to be made? Why can't the fans be excited about a quarterback, a 5th round quarterback? We know he shouldn't have been, but why can't fans be excited that he had an outing? We know if Cameron Ward, if Ward Pass had 2 touchdowns, right, everybody would be going crazy.
Right.
So why can't Browns fans be excited about Shedeur doing well? That kid it's disgusting to me how people get so upset about his success, but they have so much joy about his failure. There were parties being thrown every single round he dropped.
Yep.
People were so happy and rejoicing, and it's crazy to me. It couldn't be me. I would never relish in another person's failure or even shortcoming or bad experience. So it's crazy to me to try to comprehend how some of these people are doing that with Shedeur.
Yeah, and I wanted to make the point of, let's not compare the two because they had very different opportunities in their first preseason game. I went back and looked. Like, Shedeur Sanders, if he had only played 2 drives, he went 3 of 7 for 30 yards with a punt and a turnover on downs. So, like, that's the difference, is that Sanders got to get into the game. But I also want to put it out there for I saw a bunch of Titans fans and not even Titans fans, just people in general saying, like, wow, Shedeur Sanders is being covered like he's the number 1 pick and Cam Ward is the 5th round pick. Like, it's I learned this when Marcus Mariota got drafted second, and like I grew up a Titans fan, and I was in high school when Marcus was coming up his first couple years in the league, and I always hated people who said Jameis Winston was better than Marcus Mariota. Like that was I always wanted to compare the two and defend Marcus against Jameis, but like they're playing their own careers. Like, yeah, obviously in the media, you want to compare these two together because they were drafted in the same class. And, up until probably a month before the draft, there was discussions that they could go number one and number two in the draft this year. So you're going to compare them. But Shedeur Sanders' career doesn't have any effect on Cam Ward's career. It doesn't. So we don't have to get lost in these comparisons and who did better in their first preseason game. It's not a big deal. Like Cam Ward is going to have his own career regardless of what Shedeur Sanders does. And all the comparisons and stuff, especially after one preseason game, it's all premature, and we'll see what these guys end up being. But it's not going to be determined based on the fact that Sanders had a pretty nice day on Friday and that Cam Ward only played 2 series on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a lot more to go, and it's okay for both of them to do well. Like it's not a bad thing. So you're right. You don't have to compare the two. I mean, look, it's no secret that Shedeur was my favorite quarterback to watch coming out. But I mean, look, Cameron Ward has done a solid job since he's gotten here. And I think the fans should be excited that he's here. It's just, to me, you could be excited that Cam is here and is succeeding, but that doesn't mean you have to be upset if Shedeur succeeds as well.
Right. And honestly, if you want to crown a winner of the weekend among rookie quarterbacks, it's probably Jackson Dart. I think he had the best game out of all of them. And I went back and did the same exercise of what did he do through his first 2 drives? Did he get into a rrhythm? 6 of 8, 91 yards and a touchdown for Jackson Dart on his first 2 drives. He ended up having a really good day. That touchdown pass was, it was a dime over the shoulder, dropped it in the bucket to his wide receiver. So, honestly, I thought it was a good weekend overall for rookie quarterbacks. Tyler Shuck had a little bit of struggles early. He hit a deep touchdown later in the game. I mean, it was wide open. I don't think it was like a big time throw or whatever they classify those as in PFF or whenever they're grading them. But overall, for a quote unquote weak rookie quarterback class, and again, it's the preseason. They're not playing with starters. They may not be playing against starters, but overall, it seemed like all these guys got off on the right foot for their first game action in the NFL.
Yeah, no doubt. And I mean, look, let's talk about Jackson Dart a little bit because, this is a guy that watching him at the combine, Jake, I was like, wait a second. This dude is out here slinging it. And then you see him, what he did against the Bills. I thought it was pretty cool. He got to go against the Bills, in his first taste of live NFL action. He just so happens to be a big Josh Allen fan, so he got to take the field for the first time in front of the guy that he looks up to. There was a throw, as you mentioned, that touchdown one. I just love the fact, like, they come up there, it's cover one, right? And you got single high, and he looked over at 81, and, he saw Dane Jackson, who I really liked out of Pittsburgh, by the way. He saw him on him, and he said, you know what? We're going downtown. And there was no hesitation. He caught the snap, and he put it out there in a nice place before the safety could get over there, and it was a big play, touchdown. You love those things from a young quarterback, just going out there and doing it like that. I thought that was impressive.
Yeah, Jackson Dart, there's a reason why he ended up moving up draft boards, and I think he had a good career at Ole Miss. Maybe just didn't win the big games, but Brian Daboll and Joe Shane, like those guys, their backs are against the wall, and I don't think they would have hitched their wagons to Jackson Dart unless they really believed in him. TD, I know obviously you being from right on the 95 corridor in Philly, and I grew up just outside DC. Did you see the video of Jackson Dart just not knowing what the easy pass was?
No.
It's pretty funny. He's going through this toll, and I guess they're doing like a little documentary series, and they have a video of him, and he just rolls through. He's like, yeah, I don't really know what I'm doing here. I just kind of drive through and hope nothing happens. I'm like, man, you're about to get a ton of tickets in the mail, Mr. Dart.
Yeah, those things are coming, man, because they're taking pictures of the license plates.
Yeah, he's from Utah. Obviously, he went to USC and then Ole Miss. So I just thought that was funny. But Jackson Dart had a good weekend. Shador Sanders had a good weekend. I thought Cam Ward had a good weekend. This is going to be an important week for Cam Ward, TD, and we're going to get more into the joint practices later in the
Yeah.
show. But yeah, you got the one joint practice against Tampa on Thursday of last week. You get 2 drives in the preseason game on Saturday. But now you got back-to-back days, joint practices where you're facing this Falcons defense a lot over the next 2 days. We'll see how much he plays in the preseason game on Friday. But I think we're going to learn a lot about Cam Ward's growth. If he can take what he learned from the last week in Tampa and take another big step against the Falcons this week, I think that's going to show a lot in terms of development for Cam Ward.
Yeah, it is going to show a lot in terms of development. And I think look, I think the offense is in good hands. I think the future is bright. But again, you can't get too high off of this. Just like if he were to throw 2 interceptions, you don't get too low. Just ride the wave and understand that it's a process and it's a building thing. And that's one of the things that they always talk about. Whenever you ask them, hey, what will make Cameron Ward ready to start the season opener against Denver? And they say, I'm not thinking about Denver. We're thinking about tomorrow. Like, it's got to stack the days and get to that point where he's ready to start.
Yeah, one preseason game is not going to determine how he plays this season. It's another step in the development process. And like you said, he's got to stack the days together. I actually went back over the weekend and was just looking at, some other quarterbacks, what they did in their first preseason game. Like, it's not always going to be perfect. Like Lamar Jackson was 7 for 18 in his first preseason game with the Ravens. Josh Allen was 9 of 19 in his first preseason game. Different prospects, of course, but it's like, you can't take what a guy does in his first true game action and say that's going to be what he's going to be for the full season or his career. So exciting stuff from Cam Ward. I think there was a lot of good. There was some bad, but overall, we have to see where it leads. And this week will show us if he's able to build off of some of the things he did well and learn from some of the mistakes that he had. I mean, he threw a pick on Thursday in the joint practices, nearly threw one in the game on Saturday. If he has a good week of practice against Atlanta, I think that shows us that he's going to be ready to roll for week 1 against Denver.
Yeah, it shows a progression. It shows work towards that point where he'll be ready, no doubt.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. If you have thoughts on Cam Ward's preseason debut on Saturday, where he goes 5 of 8, 67 yards, and ends with a touchdown drive on a 1-yard run from Tony Pollard. We have some travel snafus we want to get into here to wrap up hour number 1. I know TD had some struggles in Tampa. I had a little trouble in Detroit yesterday. We'll wrap up hour number 1 with that coming up next. 615-737-1025. Jake Lyman, Teron Davenport, Connor Newt, next man up here on 1025 The Game. Wrapping up hour number one here on Next Man Up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Teron Davenport, Connor Newt with you until noon, recapping the Titans' loss to the Bucks in preseason game number one over the weekend. TD and I have some travel stories to swap here, but before we do that, let's go to our phone lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Adam in Portland is called in wanting to talk about Cam Ward. Adam, good morning. What you got?
Hey, TD, I thought you looked like a stud on TV the other day, man. You killing it.
Oh, thanks, man. Appreciate you.
Here's the problem I got, Jake, is that, yeah, Cam did everything I wanted him to do, which I did not want him to do any of the, flicks or the, off-timing stuff. I didn't want him to do anything weird. I just wanted him to get in there and run it. 5 of 8's fine. He missed some open stuff. I'm fine with that because I think he's smart enough. He's going to figure it out, and next time it'll be a little bit better. The problem I got, dude, is even in short sample size and in preseason, our defense sucks so bad. I want to keep it focused on Cam, but I feel like our defense gave me nothing. And even if you say they were bragging about him making a couple of no gain run stops, I'm like, dude, this is bad. If that's what you're reaching for, but Cam's gonna be he's gonna have so much pressure to score. He's gonna have to score a lot of points, man. And so I worry about him in that regard. I feel like he did everything he was supposed to do in the first game, but the defense made me worry for Cam.
Yeah, thanks for the call, Adam.
Adam, hold that. Let's not let him go.
Adam, he dropped.
Okay. Well, I'm sure if we were to ask Adam if he felt Jeffrey Simmons is important to the defense, I'm sure he would say, yeah, you know what? He is pretty important. Simmons wasn't on the field, right? So, I mean, look, I'm not going to say the defense looked good. It didn't. But, I mean, it's one game. As I always say, don't get too low, don't get too high. You see what's going on and make the adjustments. And I think that's really the thing. But while we're talking about defense, can we talk about James Williams?
Yeah.
And what he was able to do out there on the field without Cody Barton on the field with him?
Yep.
Right? And how he set the tone and how he came down and he was dumping. Now, there was a play, I think, well, that was actually the run play. That was on Jalen Kimber. He got sucked inside and the running back got outside. But I think overall, you look at James Williams, he's a guy that is continuing to make that switch, right, from safety to linebacker. And I talked to him a lot about just how things come up on you a lot faster and how much more discipline you have to be with your eyes because things are happening so much faster. And he's seeing that. And that's one of the things that Cody Barton really helped him with is just making sure his eyes are in the right place and he's reading the right keys. Because the thing with a guy like him that's so aggressive and a downhill thumper, teams will start misdirecting it, right? And make him go to the wrong gap. And next thing you know, another gap is open and the running back blows through it and it's a house call. So those are some of the positive things. But Adam is right. The defense did not play well. They did not. And there's a lot that has to be done in order to get that right. You know, they were able to stop the bleeding on that first drive and force the field goal. But that first drive, you know, they're moving down the field.
Right. And you do have to make the point of how many starters were not out there for the Titans defense. I mean, Sweat and Simmons, obviously the big ones. And L'Jarius Sneed, no matter what your thoughts are on him, he's expected to be a starting cornerback for this team. He wasn't out there either. Cody Barton. So, but James Williams, you're right. He is the one who flashed on Saturday night, starting from the very jump. That hit on the kickoff return, especially you don't get as much of a running start on those kickoffs anymore with the new rules. He came up and thumped that returner. So I thought it was a really good step for James Williams. And that's a guy who maybe ends up being the steal of that draft for the Titans 2 years ago. A guy who, again, transitioning from safety and needed a little bit of work, didn't play much last year. But the fact that he's already listed as your starting inside linebacker next to Cody Barton, that is huge for him. And I think we're going to see a lot of growth, not just from now to the start of the season, but by the end of the year, maybe he is one of your better defensive players.
Yeah, maybe. And I think, you know, having a guy like Cedric Gray behind him is something else. But, I mean, one guy that is viewed as a starter is Darrell Baker, right? And you look at right from the rip, right, the first play, you got that deep pass to Jalen McMillan. he's got to pick that up and stay with him. You saw McMillan be able to run away from him on that kind of like a post type of route. You can't allow that to happen, right? And then you look at a little bit later, Emeka Ibuka, and man, he's nice, by the way. But, he ran that deep outbreaking route, and you would like to see a guy like Amani Hooker be able to jump on that and take that away as opposed to allowing it to be open. And right there, I mean, you're talking about, Jake, you're talking about 46 yards, on 2 plays,
yeah.
Right? So, and from 2 guys who are starters. So, like, to Adam's point, you should, I'm not going to say be concerned, but you should be on some like, yeah, that's got to get better. I'm going to keep watching that and see, because these guys behind the front line, like on the back end, they got to be able to hold it down if the front end is not able to get there.
Yeah, and I think the second drive probably was the most concerning, that they just could not get off the field. I mean, that's a 10-minute drive.
Yeah.
You had a sack on that drive too, which usually, like, if Jihad Ward gets that sack, you put him behind the chains, you feel pretty good, and you still couldn't get off the field. So I do agree. There's reason for concern, but also it is just preseason game number 1. You didn't have a good amount of your starters. So, I don't think it's any reason to freak out, but it's also not comforting to see what happened for the defense on Saturday night.
Jake, you mentioned Jihad Ward. You know where he's from, right?
Where is he from?
Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Oh, there we go. Philly guy. And, he had was that the only sack Titans had?
Yeah.
Yep. So Jihad Ward, he was the Lorenzo Carter replacement. He had 1 more sack than Carter had last year, and he's already got 1 in the preseason. We're going to continue recapping the game from Saturday night. I want to talk Taj Spears' injury coming up in the next hour, and also the backup quarterbacks, which was not great. That'll be in the 10 o'clock hour. But before we wrap up this hour, TD, I know I had a little travel issue yesterday, but I do want to hear your story of your Tampa travel, because we were on the air on Thursday when I saw your tweet saying that you are not going to make it to Tampa till 11 a.m. and you rolled in to the joint practice just as it was wrapping up. What happened there that led you to get to Tampa, 12 hours or so or more later than you were expecting?
Yeah. Shame on me. I normally fly American. I'll veer away and get on Delta, which is what I flew here to Atlanta. But I got away from the norm and I got on United. And, I got there just a little bit before the door closed, and the door was already closed. I'm like, what the heck's going on? And it turned out there was a company-wide outage. And so with that outage, there was something with the weight for planes, like being able to, the weight scale, so you'll know the balancing. You ever be on the plane and you'll see them say, hey, you know what?
Right.
I need you to move from here to 14A, and you move, and that's for the balancing. That mechanism was out of whack across the country. So there's a whole bunch of planes being grounded, right? Mine ended up being pushed back. I was supposed to take off at 6:15. We ended up taking off at like 9 o'clock, right? And so like right around 8:40 when they're boarding, I'm like, well, wait a minute. Before I board this plane, I need to know that my connector is going to be there. And they're like, oh, well, it's a company-wide outage and they're delayed too. And I said, well, how do I know they're delayed 3 hours? Just like I am. And well, you'll be okay. I said, well, listen, when's the next one getting out after my flight? And they said, oh, well, yours is the last of the night. I said, I'm not about to get on this plane and not know that I'm gonna make it tonight. And sure enough, they say, oh, well, you got to get on. If you want to go, you got to get on. And so I get on the plane, and we're like 20 minutes away from DC at Dulles International. We're 20 minutes away. And I get a buzz on my phone, and I look at it. I say, God dang. 8:40 a.m. That was my flight, 8:40 a.m.
Oh, no.
And it arrived at 11 o'clock, 11:05, right? That's when it was set to arrive. So, I go there, we get the little voucher. They try to put me in a days in. I say, listen, man, like I'm not doing that. I'm sorry. We gotta upgrade a little bit. Like, I'm not doing that. So we got into a somewhat better hotel. I was in a Holiday Inn, but Yeah, man, I went there, went to bed, woke up, and was back on the at the airport, and of course that plane ended up landing at 11:15 as opposed to 11. One of the beauties of playing college football, you got teammates in many cities. I have 3 teammates in Tampa. My guy Greg, my homie, he was able to come scoop me right there at the airport and shoot me right over to the Bucks facility, and I was able to get in there in time to watch Cam on the last drive. Have a little bit of some disconnects on some throws, and that's the works, you know. And I just couldn't believe that I got there at 11:15 on Thursday instead of 12:44 a.m. Thursday morning like I was supposed to.
That it's crazy, and I'm glad that you are already in Atlanta, so everyone will get your great coverage tomorrow, starting those joint practices. You got to spend a night in my neck of the woods. I grew up like 20 minutes from Dulles Airport, so
Yeah.
so yeah, you got a little Northern Virginia up there. For me, honestly, I feel like I feel a lot better about my experience now after hearing yours. I was just going to talk about how the Detroit airport yesterday, I was coming back from Detroit, got to see my Tigers over the weekend, and just an absolute mess in the terminal. 3 different lines. No one could tell where anyone was going. At some point, people are jumping into the standard security line, thinking it's TSA pre-check and vice versa. It was an absolute mess. It took over an hour to get from, hopping out of the Uber at the airport to through security. Luckily, we got to our gate just as they were boarding. But I know there were probably lots of people who did miss their flight. So I just wanted to put that out there. I talked to Joe Rexroad, who is a Detroit guy. He said it's not typically like that. So I guess I just was there on maybe one of the worst days of the year.
No, I mean, it's always not typically like that when it goes wrong, right?
Right. So travel, never fun. The good news is TD is already in Atlanta for joint practices and the preseason game this week. Titans, I believe is it 9:30 tomorrow? Eastern time they get going?
You know what? I gotta recheck the schedule. I think it's yeah, something like that.
Somewhere around
I don't know
there.
for sure.
So we'll be on the air tomorrow, and we'll be checking in with TD's updates out there from Atlanta as the Titans and Falcons start their first of 2 joint practices. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. When we come back, an injury on Saturday night for Taj Spears. What does it mean moving forward for the Titans running back and the room as a whole? We'll get into it. Jake Lyman, Teron Davenport, Connor Newton, next man up here on 102.5 The Game. Hour number 2 on this Monday. Next man up, 1025 The Game. Jake Lyman, Teron Davenport, Connor Newt with you, broadcasting live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heat, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. TD out in Atlanta, getting ready for joint practices this week. Preseason game number 2 for the Titans against the Falcons on Friday night. TD talked about Cam Ward a lot in the first hour. But the big picture news that was probably the most important from Saturday is Taj Spears, a high ankle sprain. You break that news on Saturday night. Probably going to miss the rest of the preseason at the very least. I would guess probably at least one regular season game too. What does this mean for the Titans running back room that I think a lot of people expected maybe a more even split between Pollard and Spears heading into the year? And now without Tajay with the team practicing for the next 3-4 weeks, most likely going to be a lot of Tony Pollard moving forward, it seems.
Yeah, it looks like there is going to be a lot of Tony Pollard, and that's the way it ended up being last year, right? 260 carries. It's not just everybody outside of the building that expected it to be balanced. Brian Callahan, the guy who calls the plays himself, wanted it to be more balanced because he wanted to keep both guys healthy. We know what happened with Pollard, down the stretch, with the foot injury and not being able to practice and having to come out. And like the one game was the Patriots game. He toughed it out so much that Callahan was almost in tears talking about, how much he appreciated his guy putting it on the line. So that lets you know what they're looking to do in a normal situation with Spears being a guy that's available to them. And you look at Spears in camp, he was playing at another gear from the other people on the field. And he was always like getting to that hole, slow to the hole, but exploding through it. And then exploding away from the defense. You know what I mean? You see him running the ball all the way to the end zone on almost every carry. The one time he didn't, Jahad Ward punched it out. Shout out to Jahad Ward, too, for the hustle he has, right? Running with the running backs when they run to the end zone in practice. But, I mean, now you look at it and it's like, okay, can Jordan Mims step up and take advantage of this opportunity? Can Khalil Mullins continue to step up? Well, Julius Chestnut, a guy who, when he first got here, I'm calling him Natron Mean. You know what I mean? A big guy with sweet feet, but he's actually lost some weight, but still managed to be able to play behind his pads almost just as much. So I know that power side of things is what that Titans group is looking for. But if you don't have that change of pace, that guy that you could do a lot of things with, catching the ball out of the backfield, heck, that 13-yard catch and run that he had, that's where he got injured, right? Taj Spears, that is. So you want to try to be able to curb that. And I don't know how things are going to go as far as like when he's going to be available to them. But if you look at it, they may have to go out and get somebody, not because the guys behind him aren't good enough, but because you need that guy who could still help in the pass catching side of things. And I don't know for sure that, these guys that they have can. You look at someone like Chase Edmonds, one of the Titans fans on Twitter, J5, I think, J 2 times, something like that. I have to double check his handle, but he brought up Zach Moss, and that's a really good correlation right there because obviously he worked with Callahan in the past,
Yeah, and I think we'll probably find out how serious this injury is based on if the Titans do make a move, because you're right. I like Khalil Mullins. I like Julius Chestnut. I like Jordan Mims, but they can't be your third down back. And like Pollard has the ability to catch the ball out of the backfield, but he's not quite as shifty and explosive as Tajay Spears is. I'm looking at this list of guys still out there. You mentioned Zach Moss. I think obviously that's the one that makes the most sense. I mean, coming from the Bengals, only 27 years old, probably wouldn't cost a ton to go get. Other guys who are out there, Gus Edwards, Jeff Wilson. You mentioned Chase Edmonds, but there's really not a whole lot out there. You could bring back an old friend, Deontay Foreman, who's still out there on the market. But I think you will find out pretty quickly how serious this is and how long Tajay Spears is going to miss based on whether the Titans go out and sign a veteran.
Yeah, no doubt. And look, man, I'll say this, like selfishly, Jamal Williams would be he would be pretty fun. to have here just because of just how off the wall he is. Crazy thing, man. He's been in the league 8 years. You know how we do the draft series talking with TD?
Yep.
Yeah. Had him on, man.
Wow.
So yeah, we got some time in. But no, you're right though. Whatever they do, that's going to tell us what the severity is with Taj Spears. And you just hate to see it, man, because this is a kid that I don't know what it was he went through, but just in talking to him one-on-one, like you could feel like this dude went through something last year, right? And so, he talked about being able to express forgiveness. Now, I don't know what he had to forgive, who he had to forgive, or whatever, but like you hate to see somebody come out on top of all of that and then get kind of pushed back with the injury. So obviously we're concerned about him. From the football side of things, you never want to see somebody get hurt and not be on the field, but also from a mental. Like, I wonder how he's going to be not being able to, let out that frustration or be in that field. Because remember, Jake, a lot of these guys, like their peace, their happy zone is being on the field. So you take that away, and that could be a detriment to their mental health also.
Yeah, it's tough for Taj Spears, a guy who pretty much since he's been drafted, Titans fans have been excited about coming into every season. It's like this could be a guy who is a playmaker, and the Titans have been looking for playmakers on the offensive side of the ball for a while now. Tajay, I hope he comes back. It was tough to watch the two touches that he got back to back. One, he runs into Chimdike and goes down for a loss. And then you're right, he makes a nice move on that little screen pass and turned it upfield and just got rolled up on. You knew it wasn't the ACL because he doesn't have one of those. But good to know that it wasn't the most serious it could be, because anytime you see a cart come out for a guy, your mind kind of goes to, okay, that might be the last time we see him this season. High ankle sprain is not good, and obviously it could take a while for him to come back. But the good news is Taj Spears will be back, hopefully sooner rather than later this season.
Yeah. And I mean, look, there's no sign of how severe it is. But, this is the thing that you hate, Jake, the high ankle sprain. Fortunately, I've never had to experience that. But people I know that have experienced it, you're never really good.
Right.
Like, I'm not going to say never, but you're not really good for the whole year with that. And it could always be some type of little, like, turn your ankle type of thing or get rolled on type of thing that puts you right back, if not worse, than where you already where you were when you injured it, so you hate to see it.
Yeah, we've seen these high ankle sprains. Like, there are some, and I don't want to use Patrick Mahomes as the example, but he had that high ankle sprain in the playoffs a couple years ago and played on it. A little bit different quarterback versus running back, obviously. But then there are some that obviously, like a bad high ankle sprain, he could be out for a month and a half, 2 months. We don't really know. It's all just going to depend on the severity and how fast he can rehab it and get back. Adam in Portland on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, says pretty sure Jamal Williams, is the Pokemon guy, right? Yes, he is.
Yes. He is a trip, man. He's a trip.
I mean, that him and Jahmyr Gibbs, or no, was it him and David Montgomery a couple of years ago with the Lions?
Yeah.
Like that was,
he had all the touchdowns, man. Like, and now David Montgomery's the beneficiary. They get down inside that low red zone and he's getting the ball instead of Gibbs.
Yeah. And Williams recently spending time with the Saints didn't quite recapture that magic that he had in Detroit, but maybe a guy, it's a veteran and he knows how to make plays out of the backfield. Maybe that ends up being a guy the Titans go out and get. I think I'd prefer a Zach Moss, but
no doubt Zach Moss would be the best option. I just was talking from a selfish standpoint of having a little something extra to write about.
1325 on our text line says he needs a tightrope surgery. I haven't seen that reported anywhere, but that would be the same surgery that Ryan Tannehill had back in 2022. Right. Yes. Yeah. Because he was trying to get back if the Titans did make the playoffs when they lost the 7 straight games. They were trying to see if he could get back. And obviously the Titans didn't make the playoffs. So it didn't end up mattering.
Yeah. That was, I remember Malik Willis, the Chiefs game, man.
Right.
They should have beaten the Chiefs. Chris Conley He tried to catch the ball with his wrist and he dropped a critical play. But as far as the tightrope surgery on Taj Spears, that's just kind of hypothesizing.
Right.
There's nothing to that at the moment. It's very, very early. That's something usually they will do after they wait and give it time to kind of flare down, like cool off, so to speak. You know what I mean? Because when you have that strain, that ligament is put under a lot, and you got to give it time to cool down, and that swelling and all of that, man. Like your ankle turns like the color of Pepsi. You know what I mean? Because of the bruising and the stress on it.
Right. So there's nothing to that right now. I think usually the tightrope surgery is kind of like a last resort kind of thing,
Exactly,
right? Like it's
exactly.
if
It's
you
way early.
If you really need to get him back, or if just rest and recovery isn't working, then maybe that becomes the case. But we'll see with Taj Spears. Obviously not the worst case scenario after he was carted off on Saturday, a high ankle sprain. Hopefully he will be back sooner rather than later. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. If you have thoughts, we'd love to hear from you. Our phone line's driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Jake Lyman, Teron Davenport with you on this Monday, continuing to react to the Titans' loss in Tampa in preseason game number 1 on Saturday. This is Next Man Up here on 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Teron Davenport, Connor Newt with you on this Monday. Let's give something away here. Nashville Dance Fest is taking over 90,000 square feet behind the legendary Nashville Palace for the ultimate country dance and music experience. Over 70 dance workshops, live concerts every night, 4 massive outdoor dance floors, partner and line dance competitions, food trucks, vendors, silent disco, and more. Beat caller number 3 right now, and you can win a pair of tickets to the Nashville Dance Fest at the legendary Nashville Palace, September 5th through the 7. That's caller number 3 at 615-737-1025. TD, continuing our conversation around Taj Spears. Spears going down with a high ankle sprain. If the Titans weren't to add behind Tony Pollard, if they feel like, hey, Taj Spears can be back maybe by week 2, week 3, somewhere in there, do you think they have enough with Kalel Mullings, Julius Chestnut, and some of the other options there to at least piece something together until Taj Spears is healthy enough to return?
No, and you talked about it a bit. The third down aspect, you need that back that you could get the ball to out of the backfield. And I'm not saying that they're doing this, so I'm not sharing trade secrets, but you also, if you have Tony Pollard there, and let's say you want to go, 22 personnel, 2 tight ends and 2 backs, or if you want to go, with 2 backs and 2 receivers, like you want, 22 personnel. If you want to do that, right, you need to be able to have a guy that could attack in the passing game in addition to Pollard, right? So that's where a guy like Spears really helps out, because when you have those 2 backs in there, then they match it. And I personally think Spears against a linebacker is an advantage. Do I think that Julius Chestnut against a linebacker is?
Yeah.
I think it depends on the backer, right? But I think universally it's an advantage with Spears. So you need to have that matchup, that mismatch, because we know this game, that's what it's about, and Spears is not, he's a little more than a pawn on the chessboard, right? He's kind of like that bishop, or like, one of the upper pieces, so to speak.
Yeah, and we've seen it before with the Titans too, that you can bring in a running back off the street and have success. Like Deontay Foreman, who we just mentioned, who is out there on the market, he came in that 2021 season, and honestly, there was, like, obviously you're not getting Derrick Henry level production, but you were able to make it work. Dontrell Hilliard would be a great example. Another Tulane guy, of a guy they brought in. He ended up being a great third down back for them. So I think it makes sense if Taj Spears is going to miss more than maybe just one game. If you're not sure he's going to be back for that game against the Rams in week 2, maybe it does make sense to bring in a Zach Moss, or, I'm looking at some of these other names out there. It really isn't a long list of veteran guys on the market.
Slim pickings.
But you could bring in a guy who can at least help you out in that 1 to 2 weeks. And then hopefully when Taj Spears comes back, he can jump right back in. But as you said, these high ankle sprains, it depends on the severity, but sometimes you're just not the same person until you get to the offseason and can fully get it to recover.
Yeah. And, Taj Spears is a guy that works off of a lot of cutting and, twitchy type of things. So hopefully for his sake, he'll be able to get that back. But one thing you also got to remember, and anytime you talk to Chad Brink or Mike Berganzi, about the whole the roster construction part of it, they're quick to bring up, hey, we're first in the waiver wire. You know what I mean? So if a guy comes out and is available, they have first choice of them. So that's something else to look at. And we know rosters are consistently being churned. And if it doesn't happen up until the point where roster cut down day is, it could happen afterward. And that's why if I'm somebody like back end of the roster type of guy, I'm still sweating the first couple of days after those quote unquote final cuts, because you might end up getting cut because a position of weakness became available and they grab a player. Look at Darrell Baker Jr. last year, who, ran Carthon and the crew. They snapped him up, and we're talking about him as a starter opposite Jarvis Brownlee Jr., the 5th round pick, who ran Carthon selected that as starting there.
Yeah, and maybe this becomes a situation where maybe Taj Spears has to start the season on the PUP list and miss those first 4 games. But you're right. That is a very important factor in all of this, is the Titans do have the number 1 waiver priority. So maybe that becomes the top priority for them, is to look for, all right, who is the best running back who's getting let go by these teams out there? And the Titans can just go out there. If they make him the number 1 claim, boom, you've got yourself a guy who can be your third down back. It's just a matter of what actually gets out there. You don't know that until these teams cut down to 53.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just that's why I like the phrase roster churning, because that's literally what you're churning and churning and churning, trying to find that gem or that front office, transaction. The front office is that could help them out.
Right. Yeah. We've seen it already in training camp on the 90-man roster. Like former Tennessee Volunteer Ramel Keaton came in for like 3 days and then they turned him out of there. So you never know. You've still got what roster cut down day is 3 weeks away, right around there. So
Yeah, it's about that.
they've got 3 weeks and you get to evaluate the players that you currently have on your roster. And it's always an evaluation in the preseason of watching these other games. I'm sure that Mike Borgonzi and Chad Brinker are, especially during these joint practices. Like, let's look at who do the Falcons have at running back? Maybe there's somebody who they see this week during these joint practices, and maybe that ends up being the guy that they use. I mean, I'm looking at this really not knowing. Their running backs, obviously Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier. There's not a whole lot else out there besides that.
Yeah.
But just as an example, like you get to spend these weeks with Tampa and Atlanta. It's all part of the scouting process of trying to find these guys who maybe become available at the end of the training camp and the preseason that you can bring in and they can be a factor for your team.
Yeah, I mean, you never know who you could find. To your point, the joint practices, that's not just for inter team, like team versus team competition. That's scouting too. Like you get to look at some guys that may end up coming available, and who knows? Like, what if it's a guy that's just killing, right? And he becomes available. You're like, oh, well, I remember he was eating my guys alive. Let me bring him on over here. You know what I mean?
Right. It's like, was it David Martin Robinson who had such a great joint practice against the Seahawks last? It's like you can't cut that guy because Seattle's probably going to be all over him. So
they were waiting, and that's why they kept 4 tight ends, if you remember, because
right.
all 4 of the guys shine. You know what I mean? Well, Chig, was going to make the roster. Wiley had a good camp. You know what I mean? And obviously, DMR, and then you look at Odakoya. They were impressed. They were waiting. Trust me, I know for a fact the Seahawks were waiting to find out if a guy was going to become available.
Yeah, running back, now a question mark for the Titans. Felt like it was a strength before Taj Spears goes down with the high ankle sprain. Obviously, this all becomes a moot point if Taj Spears only is going to miss a couple of weeks and he'll be ready for the regular season, but we don't know that yet. Titans may have to make some changes in that room leading up to the regular season. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We'd love to hear from you. You can text or call our phone lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Another position group that maybe there could be some changes coming to the quarterback room. Cam Ward went 5 of 8, 67 yards, and led a touchdown drive in his 2 drives under center on Saturday night. The Titans did not score the rest of the game through 3 interceptions between Brandon Allen and Tim Boyle. We will talk about the backup quarterback position coming up next and whether the Titans maybe need to churn some guys in and out of there as well. 615-737-1025. Jake Lyman, Teron Davenport, Connor Newton, next man up. You're on 1025 The Game.
How much does a day like today make you reevaluate the plan behind Cam with Brandon and Tim?
I think anytime you get the chance to see guys playing a game, you look at it, you see what was good, what was bad. I think Brandon had some good plays. I think there was a player or two that interception was unfortunate. I mean, it's a tip ball and a guy makes a one-handed catch. That's unfortunate. I hate to see it. But yeah, I mean, we think we got to play better for sure at that spot. I think over the totality of those reps at the end of the second half of the game when Cam came out, just keep looking at it, keep trying to get better.
That was Brian Callahan post-game on Saturday talking about the backup quarterbacks for the Titans. Cam Ward left the game with 7 points on the board, and no more points were scored the rest of the day. Brandon Allen, Tim Boyle out there threw a combined 3 interceptions. Jake Lyman, Teron Davenport, Connor Newton, next man up here on 102.5 The Game. Before we do get into the backup quarterbacks, we were just talking about free agent running backs. Jamal Williams is being worked out by the Dolphins today. So possible that maybe he is off the board on what was already a thin list of free agent running backs if the Titans did want to add somebody in the absence of Taj Spears. But TD, thoughts on the backup quarterbacks on Saturday night? It was kind of a weird game because, by the time Ward was out, he only had 2 series, but by the time Cam Ward came out of the game, it was already mid-second quarter. Brandon Allen, I thought was fine. Like Brian Callahan said, the interception was kind of just a weird play. But Tim Boyle, a 0.6 passer rating is tough to get. 4 of 13, 2 interceptions. He was not good. Obviously, it's your third string quarterback. You really hope that there's never a situation where he has to be on the field in a meaningful game. But overall, it wasn't great from the Titans backups on Saturday.
No, it wasn't even good, to be honest with you. And entering that game, because I remember talking to Corey Curtis for the Titans pregame show, and I said, hey, look, man, like the guys have had solid camps, but I don't know that I would be happy and satisfied with where I was backup quarterback wise if these were my guys. And that's been the case since this was the decision. It was just always like, really? Even with Will Levis on the roster, really? Brandon Allen, Tim Boyle? Like those are the guys, the veterans you brought in? It just never really made sense. Honestly, Tyler Huntley was available. I would have jumped on that because I think you're getting a guy
Pro Bowl.
Yeah, by default, right? He was the seventh. It's like getting a 7th place ribbon, you know what I mean, on field day, you know what I mean. But I think when you look, like that's probably a guy I would feel much better with. Neither of those guys played well, and there was one play, and I said it to Matt Landers after in the locker room after the game, like it was an incompletion, and that dude was he was standing there. He could have done jumping jacks by himself, and nobody would have even been able to come over to get him in time to catch the football. So obviously, right, sitting all the way up top and looking down, you're getting the best view of the field, so it's going to be different. So I can only be but so critical, but that's something that your quarterback has to see. You have to take advantage of those situations.
Yeah, it was like Brandon Allen watching the game. It was fine. Like there were some plays where he actually he hit Gunnar Helm on an out route and he got 16. Like there were some plays that one drive he got them all the way down. And I know Brian Callahan kind of explained that 4th and 2, and that the communication, the helmet was off, and that he didn't call a play that he liked because they were a little bit frazzled. But as a quarterback on 4th down, you got to give somebody a chance, right? You can't just throw it out the back of the end zone.
Yeah. You got to give them a chance to make a play. And, throwing it away on 4th down is like, that's just like, that's the dumbest thing you could do. Right. You know what I mean? So you do want to always give your guy a chance to make a play. And I know you don't want it intercepted, but if it does get intercepted, obviously don't put it totally in harm's way. But again, give your guy a chance to make a play on the ball.
Yeah. I mean, Bryce Oliver, he was double covered. He wasn't open. But if you throw that 5 feet lower than he did, at the very least, Bryce Oliver can go up and try and make a play on it, because in that situation, an incomplete pass is basically an interception at that point. I do have to give Tim Boyle credit because I was looking around X over the weekend after he had such a bad game, and I saw his college stats, and it just blows my mind that this guy ever got an opportunity to play NFL football. I really don't understand. So here are his stats at Connecticut. 59 completions on 133 attempts his freshman year, 44% completion percentage, 52% his sophomore year, 51% his junior year. So he never finished a season with more than 52% completion percentage. In 2013, he threw no touchdowns and 8 interceptions and took 18 sacks. Maybe I'm reading this wrong and maybe I'm missing something, but the fact that Tim Boyle has been in the NFL for like 5 years is actually really impressive.
It's impressive, but you also look at guys like, here you go, you're a VTech guy. Remember Gerard Evans?
Yeah.
How is he not in the league? Right?
See, Gerard Evans,
know?
that is a perfect example because Gerard Evans in the 2016 season for Virginia Tech was great. I mean, he was the best quarterback the Hokies have had since Logan Thomas, and
broke his records for total yards.
Right. And I think everybody in Blacksburg was shocked that he didn't come back because he went undrafted and never really got a chance. But yeah, I look at Tim Boyle. This is his 7th NFL season, and I'm looking at his college stats. And I mean, this guy, what did an NFL team see to put him on their team the first time? I just don't understand it. Like it says he came out of Eastern Kentucky, but I'm not seeing any stats at Eastern Kentucky. Maybe that's just something I'm missing, but it looks like he played 3 seasons at Connecticut, threw 1 touchdown and like 12 picks. Okay. Oh, so for some reason the website I was on didn't have his statistics from Eastern Kentucky. They're still not great. 61% completion percentage, 11 touchdowns, 13 picks, 2,100 yards as a senior at Eastern Kentucky. So that at least makes it a little bit better, but still not great stuff. I got to give credit to him because the fact that he's made a 7-year NFL career it's impressive. I wonder if the Titans honestly would be better off bringing someone else in who, I don't know, like maybe somebody younger that you feel like can grow. Or is this a situation, TD, where they just like having Tim Boyle in that room and you hope he never actually has to hit the field?
No doubt. Hey, Jake, I'm going to mess with your mind a little bit, though. You ready to be mind blown?
I'm ready.
He and Tim Boyle and Will Levis went to the same high school.
Really?
Yeah. Xavier in Connecticut, man.
Oh,
but
yep.
I think, the one thing I will say, though, for Boyle is at least I got to watch, getting to watch him practice. You're like, okay, that was, 6'4", he got the size, nice size body, arm is pretty good. I could see wanting to, kick the tires on him, right, to see how he looks. But then it's like you get him in the game and just something just doesn't seem to click. At least that's what we saw recently, on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, it just the interceptions, especially the pick 6. I mean, he's looking for Mason Kinsey there. It looked like maybe they just weren't on the same page. Like Kinsey breaks the route inside, and it looked like Boyle was throwing a stop route, but it basically hit the defensive back right between the numbers, and he was able to run in for 6. Like, I understand maybe if it is just hey, this guy, he knows the offense really well. He's a good locker room guy. He can help Cam Ward understand some of the stuff that he's seeing in the meeting room, but we never expect him to actually hit the field. But it is moderately concerning that the Titans are one Cam Ward injury away from having Brandon Allen and Tim Boyle as the only 2 quarterbacks on the roster.
Yeah, and look, man, either way, if someone other than Cameron Ward has to get under center, you're canceling Christmas regardless. You know what I mean? But it would kind of be a bittersweet thing because I would imagine where the Titans are backup-wise, their record wouldn't be good. So now maybe you could go up and you could grab one of these impact receivers or pass rushers. But, I mean, you don't even want to play in that world, right? You want to have
Right.
your guy Cameron Ward always available for you. He's the one that you want when it's time to go, 800 feet to the, I don't know, away from Nissan Stadium to the new Nissan Stadium in February 27th. You want to make sure that that guy is under center and good to go.
Yeah, and not to make the easy Bengals comparison that we always make, because again, Callahan coming from the Bengals, but Joe Burrow tore his ACL his rookie year. It ended up allowing them to be in a position to take Jamar Chase the next year. Obviously, like you said, you don't even want to play in that world because you'd like Cam Ward to play all 17 games and get through his rookie year healthy. But like, I think that's kind of where the Titans are at with this quarterback situation is like, if Ward goes down, we'll pick in the top 5 and, go get, is it TJ Ward? No. The Clemson pass rusher who's up there, TJ Parker, something like that.
Yeah.
So like go get some guy who can immediately make a difference at the top of the draft. But I'm kind of with you that I think the Titans, if Ward goes down, you're just flushing this season and moving on.
Yep, that's it, man. You're flushing to see it. But, then the question presents itself, okay, can Brian Callahan afford to have a season flux, right?
Right.
It becomes, will Amy Adams Strong be mad and make a move out of emotion? Will Chad Brinker and Mike Bergonzi be able to say, hey, look, for this young quarterback, you need stability, right? So there's a lot of things factoring in, but like the old saying goes, you want to make things better, just win.
Yeah, and you wonder if it was up to Brian Callahan, you wonder if maybe he would bring in a more veteran backup quarterback. And we can talk about that coming up next. And, maybe Callahan wants to have that safety net so the season doesn't go completely down the drain if Ward gets hurt. But I think Borgonzi and Brinker have different ideas. Chip from Mount Juliet on our text line says Boyle's claim to fame was Rodgers liked him and a good locker room guy. So maybe that's how Tim Boyle stuck around so long, is that he got on air.
Why isn't he in Pittsburgh?
Right. Yeah, that's true. I did see a texter, and I can't find it now. There it is. Cody from Jolton. As the backup quarterback situation, if he becomes available, the guy that played for Pittsburgh after Rudolph would be looking for him as a backup in Tennessee. I thought he was mentioning Mason Rudolph as an option if he comes available. Who was?
He's talking about Pickett?
Skylar Thompson. That's who he was talking about.
Skylar Thompson. Okay.
Skylar Thompson had a pretty good game on Friday or Saturday for the Steelers. 615-737-1025 is our phone number if you have thoughts on the Titans' backup quarterback situation. It was not good on Saturday night. Tim Boyle with a 0.6 passer rating. Let Tim Boyle. He had maybe one of the worst quarterback games we've seen in a long time. But we'll see. I'm sure that he'll get some reps on Friday night against Atlanta, and maybe he can bounce back and show that he deserves to be QB3. Jake Lyman, Teron Davenport, Connor Newt with you. We'll wrap up hour number 2 after this. Maybe throw out some names if the Titans did make an addition to the quarterback room. Next man up here on 102.5 The Game. Wrapping up the second hour of the show on this Monday, Titans falling in Tampa over the weekend, 29-7 in preseason game number 1. Cam Ward, solid first outing, 5 of 8, 67 yards, and led a touchdown drive to wrap up his evening. The backup quarterbacks, not so good. Jake Lyman, Teron Davenport, Connor Newt with you. We're on the backup quarterbacks because we mentioned if Cam Ward goes down, I think the idea is that you're just trying to get the highest possible draft pick. But if the Titans did want to go out and add some veteran leadership to this room, a guy who has a little more playing experience, the name that everyone brings up, TD, is Carson Wentz. And I don't think you could add Carson Wentz to this room as is, because Carson Wentz isn't signing up to be QB3. And I don't know if you're going to make Brandon Allen your QB3 right off the bat. But if an injury were to occur, and again, we don't want to live in that world, but just if it were to happen, maybe Carson Wentz is the first call if you want to bring in somebody who can at least make you try and be competitive in some of these games this season.
Well, I think if Carson Wentz is the guy and he comes in, Alec Imaner's value will increase immensely because we know Carson Wentz, he might as well play for the Clippers, the old Clippers team. Remember Lob City?
Lob City.
You know what I mean? Because that's what he likes to do. Remember with the Colts when he was throwing it up there and they were just like, all right, man, we're going to pray and we get a pass interference call. And it happened a lot. So, I mean, that is an option. I know the thing, Carson Wentz as a backup would kind of trouble me because he's a guy that he tries too hard, you know, and even it's weird because you say, well, what the heck do you mean he tries too hard? Like, aren't you supposed to try hard? Yeah, you are, but you also have to understand when the journey's over and understand to live to see another down, you know. And these are some of the things that Wentz really truly struggled with, and I'm talking about as early as his rookie year, especially, but then also, the championship year. And it's something that he struggled with, and not having that same ability post knee, it's kind of like it's a detriment because now it's like the payoff for the risk is not as great. And I mean, Jake, I'm not sure if you remember the Commanders game in 2016, where it's like, they all collapsed on him and he was basically down. You would have thought so. And next thing you know, he pops out the pile,
Yep.
A group of like 3 and he runs for like 14 yards and gets the first down. And the Lincoln Financial Field's going crazy. You don't get that too much anymore.
There's a lot of Will Levis in Carson Wentz. Like it's not just the looks are kind of the same, but like the way they play is kind of similar too, of just like that. You got to know when the journey is over, like you said.
You have to. And I mean, look, like, that's one of the things that you like about, like, okay, Cameron Ward, right? When he talked about the comeback against, Virginia Tech, and then also the one against Cal, one of the things he said, he wasn't trying to get the whole lead back with each throw, right? With one throw, it was collectively, okay, let's get this drive taken care of, score on this drive, that the defense stop them, turn around and score on it. You know what I mean? It was compartmentalized.
Yeah, and I remember we were doing Jake and TD on Fridays back then. That was a Thursday night game when Tech played Miami. And I came in and I was like, hey, I didn't know a whole lot about Cam Ward, but I came out of that game impressed because, I mean, the little flip to the tight end that ended up setting up their go-ahead touchdown, it was kind of the perfect example of that was when he could play hero ball and he knew he could do it, but didn't do too much with it. So I agree with you. I think you need more of that. And like Brandon Allen is going to be your safe backup quarterback. You don't really have to worry about it. 0599 on our text line says, why is no one talking about CJ Beathard as a possible quarterback for the Titans? Local boy in Nashville, better than any of the free agents available and better than the 2 guys we have on the active roster. I wouldn't hate CJ
Brandon
Beathard.
Allen. It's the same thing.
Right.
Though,
it's different flavors.
I think in this case, and who was it? Man, I have so many football conversations, Jake. I can't always remember who brought it up, but somebody made a good point. They said, hey, what about trading for Kenny Pickett. And I said, well, that makes some sense.
Yeah.
Or you may not even have to trade. I mean, they got, a whole nation of quarterbacks over there in Cleveland. One of them's probably going to shake free. I mean, would you want to grab one of those guys? Whether it'll probably be Pickett, frankly, but
right. You're not going to cut one of the guys you just spent a draft pick on.
Yeah. So I mean, there's some options there that they could take a look at.
Speaking of waiver wire, 9777, Jameis Winston waiver wire. If he gets cut, I wouldn't hate it.
Yeah, it's not happening. I've cried about that. I've been crying about that thing since the combine, and it's just it's not going down, man.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't expect it. I know I saw Robbie Stanley tweet about this weekend of like, look at what they took from us with Jameis Winston in his number 19 jersey for media day. Would love Jameis Winston for just the content, but I can understand why that wouldn't happen.
But what he say? What he say? Your faith in Jesus is going to determine whether I hit this crossbar.
Lord, deliver me from pick sixes. One of the greatest quotes of all time. Let's go to our phone lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Trey is on the line wanting to chime in. Trey, good morning. Go ahead.
Good morning, guys. How y'all doing?
Doing well.
Hey, what up, man? No bad days, baby.
No bad days. Hey, okay, so I watched my first preseason game of the Titans. I didn't watch any last year, a couple years. My evaluation of Cam, he needs some work. He needs a lot of work. Huh?
No, I agree with you. I said, yeah.
Yeah. He needs a lot of work. His balls come out like ducks. And we need somebody to come in, veteran guy to come in, to help this team out and try to, get Cam. They need somebody behind Cam that's gonna help Cam develop. And I don't think we have that right now. But Cam needs a lot of work, y'all. And TD, from your evaluation, actual evaluation, what did you see and what did you like? And y'all have a good day and good job. Thank you.
Thanks, Trey.
I love it. Yeah, Trey's on point. There's some work that needs to be done. And I like how he talks about a veteran guy coming in and helping out. And obviously, the veteran guy that you bring in, you don't want him on the field, but you want him to be able to, hey, this is what I saw in that situation. And, in the past, when they did this, I did that, right? And a good example of that is even at another position where J.C. Latham and Kevin Zeitler, they had a conversation. Latham had said this on Buck Rising's show. And he had talked about how Zeitler walked him through, okay, the next time this happens, I need you to tell me this. Because there was a certain way Jeffrey Simmons was aligned and the way he shot, like Latham had to pass him off and Zeitler he didn't know, and Simmons was able to get in the backfield, whatever. You know what I mean? And just the same, you want to be able to have a veteran that could bounce things off of. And that's why Alex Smith was so good for Colin Kaepernick early in his career, because, even though his job had gotten taken, he was still a good soldier, and he made sure that he shared the right nuggets for him, right? And I think, that's why I asked Cameron Ward how that process is when he comes off of the field. Obviously, it was only 2 series, but how was that process? How did guys interact? And I think that's an important part of his development as well. So that's something. But when you talk about his performance, we kind of touched on it. There were a few opportunities that he had. And look, nobody's perfect, right? His name is Cameron, not Jesus. So we're not going to expect perfection. But I think when you look at that third down, he did have an opportunity. Even Ridley was coming open on the shallow one. And then you had Jefferson a little bit deeper. And those are his trademark types of throws. He loves to throw, to those areas where those guys were coming open when he's rolling to his right. So you have that. Obviously, the throw that was almost picked off, we touched on that, right? That's something where, okay, did it sail over the tight end or was he looking for Manor? Whatever, his footwork wasn't right. And as Dan Orlovsky did a really good breakdown, I saw that and I posted it. He did a good breakdown of this play among a few others. And it's like, okay, you want to step to your target, not to the sideline. And that's kind of what he did. And he couldn't get as much on the throw, and it should have been picked off. But I think otherwise, you talk about the operation, rebounding off of the 1st and 20, that was critical. You look at, being patient in the pocket and allowing that route to develop eventually for his first completion, which was to Ridley on the 27-yarder. Those are all good things. And even checking the play at the line of scrimmage. Those are all good things.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of good to take from it, but obviously there were the 2 plays that you would have liked him to execute better. And the near pick is the one everyone looks at. I thought the 3rd and 5, not only did he miss the open receiver that could have gotten the first down, he also didn't get the throwaway out of bounds. But again, it's his first time playing in an NFL environment, and the issues come if these continue. Like if he keeps doing the same things over and over, that's when it becomes an issue long term. Let's see what he does in these joint practices tomorrow and Wednesday, and then on Friday in preseason game number 2. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. If you have thoughts, you can text or call our phone lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. 1 hour to go on this Monday. Let's talk some defense when we come back. And also an interesting text that we got a couple of minutes ago that I want to get to. We'll do that coming up next. Jake Lyman, Teron Davenport, Connor Newton, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Final hour on this Monday. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Teron Davenport, Connor Newt with you. Titans falling in their preseason opener on Saturday, 29-7. We're reacting to it all. Chasing Big Joe coming up at noon. TD, we'll get into the defense a little bit more in a second. We talked some about them earlier on, but we did just get a text a couple minutes ago that I wanted to get to because there's been a lot of talk throughout the offseason of Brian Callahan, the head coach, and does he, operationally, is he doing the right things, especially on game days? So Texter 1325 said, question for you and TD. Did Callahan do a single thing on Saturday night to evidence any shred of improvement in procedure and or operations from last year? I realize it's a small sample size, but I'm concerned based on how bad the overall performance was. And I think that's a good question because there really wasn't a lot to like from the overall team's performance on Saturday. Again, it's preseason. It's mostly backups, but you had the neutral zone infraction on a 4th and 1 that gave up a first down, ended up leading to a field goal. And really the offense as a whole didn't get much going outside of the one drive. So I think it's a fair question to be a little bit concerned. Again, knowing it's a preseason game, it's a small sample size, but obviously not great from Brian Callahan over the weekend.
Yeah, it's not great. And I think a lot of the questions should still remain. It's not good when you're at a point where say, okay, hey, there were no delay of games, or there were no those types of things. Those ME, the mental errors and the sins, you know what I mean, that self-inflicted negatives, right? Yeah. Those are things that apply to the coaching staff too. You know what I mean? It's not just the guys on the field, and I think that's something that, sure, you want to minimize it, but these are things that should be minimized regardless. And when you're a coach that isn't one with question marks over them, you don't have those. So I think that's a small step in the right direction. Again, a small step in the right direction, but there's still a lot more that have to be done. Like, that has to be consistent to where it's not like something you notice. You need to notice, oh, look at that. They usually don't do that, but guess what? It was a delay of game. They were late getting the play calling. Those are the types of things that I think are more consistent measures of somewhat progress with Brian Callahan. But then even like in these types of situations, yeah, it's obviously call it and you're putting some things together, but it's not the full game plan. So, I mean, if you're not seeing a guy like completely wide open, don't panic. It's just, there's certain things that they're trying and they're filling out, and they're not layering and stacking plays as much, which, by the way, is something that he has to do better, Brian Callahan, Nick Holson, and the crew.
Yeah, I think you're getting a vanilla game plan when it comes to the preseason. Like, no one's out there running trick plays, and you're right, like trying to set plays up on film for later on. Like that in preseason, it's very vanilla. I actually on the touchdown drive, I thought the play calling was solid. Like I thought the 3rd and 6 to Lockett, like that was a well-designed play where it's a mesh concept and Chig is kind of just clearing things out for Tyler Lockett, but I thought it set things up perfectly. The 3rd and 9, I thought was a good play call. Like overall, I thought the play calling was fine. And in a preseason game, you're not going to get a lot of the big head coaching decisions like clock management and all that kind of stuff, because who really cares about clock management in a preseason game? Everybody's clock management in the preseason is just trying to get it to run out as fast as possible. So you're not getting a whole lot of the big head coaching things. There was one delay a game, or one false start on John Ojukwu. And then I mentioned the neutral zone infraction. Like that's the neutral zone infraction. I don't know if you can place the blame on Brian Callahan, but like it isn't great. 2-minute warning in the first half. You pretty much have gotten them off the field, and then you give them a new set of downs that ends up leading to 3 on the other end. It's something that can be fixed, but obviously that was probably the big moment for me of like, that can't happen in a regular season game.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's just one of the things that can't happen for sure.
So Brian Callahan, again, as the texter even said in the question, it's a small sample size. I don't think you can make any big sweeping declarations on one preseason game about Brian Callahan's improvement as a head coach. But I also don't think there was anything really that you could look at and say, wow, Brian Callahan's gotten better at this year. We'll see if maybe that starts to show itself as we continue along in the preseason. 615-737-1025 is our phone number if you want to chime in. Lots of texts on the text line today. Some funny ones about Tim Boyle. John says 0.6. I'm 6'6". I'll go out there and give it a try. I could probably do a little better. Yeah. The 0.6 passer rating, not great. We touched on the defense earlier in the show. I do want to get back into that a little bit because even though there wasn't a lot of the top end talent on the depth chart on the field for the Titans defensively on Saturday, the depth did not look all that impressive. So we'll talk about that coming up next. Jake Lyman, Teron Davenport, next man up here on 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game, Jake Lyman, Teron Davenport. Connor Newt, was this the TD request?
Not specifically.
Oh, okay.
But I did my homework.
TD, you liking the bump music coming back here?
Can't hear it.
You can't hear it?
No.
Oh. Well, you'll have to listen back and see if you can hear it on the
It's
other.
Weekend Girl for you, TD.
Hey, yeah, that's my jam, man. Weekend Girl. I tell you, man, I told Connor the story, Jake. You know, SOS Band always brings back fond memories. I remember my cousins, my brothers, my dad, he would pack the cooler with cheap sodas, and it was like $3 for a case of orange soda, and he'll get them and he'll get the cola and the lemon lime. He'll pack the cooler. We'll go down to Penn's Landing in Philadelphia, and SOS Band used to give free concerts. So every time I hear that, like it brings back like great memories. Man.
Wow. Yeah, there we go. TD, always great with the bump music. He's out in Atlanta, so he is virtually with us in the show. So next week when we're all in studio, we'll let you have Connor Newt get all of the right bump music coming back. Jake Lyman, Connor Newt, we are broadcasting live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. TD, quickly back to the defense for the Titans on Saturday night. Again, with the caveat of no Jeffrey Simmons, no Tavondre Sweat, no Cody Barton, no L'Jarius Sneed. So, like, a lot of the big pieces on defense weren't there. Some of the starters did play, but it wasn't very good. Explosive plays. You mentioned earlier the passes to Jalen McMillan and Emeka Egbuka. Sean Tucker was carving up the Titans defense in the run game on that 10-minute long touchdown drive in the first quarter, looking like he's back at Syracuse, where he had back-to-back really good seasons for the Orange. Any concern about the Titans defense, TD, just based off of that? Obviously, we know what this Titans defense is, probably not going to be at the top of the league, but does that make you feel a little bit worse about what this unit could be this year?
Well, you want to see them be able to cover a little bit better and get after the quarterback. I think that's two things right away that stand out. One sack, through that whole game it's not good enough. And there was one where Draymond Jones he was cornering and he was about to turn and close, but he slipped and he wasn't able to go get the quarterback. And that was part of that field. I don't know if you saw the video I posted where there were so many seams in the field because it hadn't even mended together from being laid down the night before, or the morning before. But I mean, look, they got to get better from those perspectives. That hasn't changed, right? That the pass rush has been an issue. It's been something that you wanted to see them address and get better at, and they didn't, at least through one game.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the field conditions because I did see your tweet about that where you could still see the seams and weather had just rolled through there. Very glad there was no serious injuries. Taj Spears had the high ankle sprain, but that didn't have much to do with the field conditions. Because honestly, I wouldn't have blamed Brian Callahan at all if he just said, you know what? We're not going to risk it on this field. We're going to sit the starters. Cam, you'll make your preseason debut next week when we're in a dome in Atlanta, because it really didn't look good leading up to kickoff that field was going to hold up.
That field did not look good. And they had the tarp on it, all the way up. Like Cameron Ward, he came out and he was standing there doing some of his pre-stretch routine, on the sideline, watching them unearth the field. You know what I mean? So I knew the coaches weren't happy. I'll put it that way. I knew they weren't happy talking to some of them. They were really questionable about the field, and it brought me back to this was, I want to say 2001, the Baltimore Ravens. They got on a train and took the train to Philly to play the Eagles in a preseason game. And they walked the field and they saw the little div. It was the same situation. Like I was watching the Titans coaches walk the field. And I'm like, dang, I've seen this movie before. You know what I mean? Brian Billick and the coaches, they walked the field. They found divots and things they didn't like. They got on the train and went home. It didn't even bother to play the game. So I was like, I wonder if it's that bad. Apparently it wasn't.
Yeah, I'm glad that they felt like it was good enough that they could still put the starters out there. But, first preseason game, to see that, it wouldn't have shocked me if Brian Callahan, decided to play on the safe side and make sure that one of his starting players doesn't go down immediately just because of poor field conditions. I get the weather let up a little bit. Like it looked bad early on, right, TD? But then I guess it got better for game time.
Yeah. So there were torrential downpours at like 2 o'clock. You know what I mean? And
Like
so
every day in Florida.
yeah, really, and especially in hurricane season. So I knew, like, rest assured, weather was going to have a factor in who played. Right? There was a chance that Ward's debut was going to be pushed back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it was that much of a consideration, the weather that is. And like I said, it was pouring at 2 o'clock. I left at what 3 o'clock, and it was still pouring. And as we got closer to the stadium, it kind of faded away, but they still had the tarp on the field. You know what I mean? So it definitely was not the best situation, and it didn't look to be the best. It was a 58% chance of rain. You did get some, but fortunately, it wasn't like any lightning strikes or real bad pouring rain.
Yeah, I think the Titans staff has to be happy they're playing indoors at Mercedes-Benz Stadium this upcoming Friday against the Falcons. Quickly back to the defense here, TD. The depth on this team, I think the interior defensive line, you feel pretty good about with Simmons and Sweat and Sebastian Joseph Day. Those guys didn't play. I did want to mention on the Jihad Ward sack, was it Cam Horsley who kind of made that play happen? Kind of turned Kyle Trask back and right into the arms of Jihad Ward. So maybe some of the younger guys on the defensive line could end up making some plays, making the team. But outside of that and safety now, when you bring in Quandre Diggs, like it seems like there's not a whole lot of depth beyond the starters anywhere else on this Titans defense.
Yeah, I mean, the depth is an issue. And that's the roster. That's the state of this roster.
Right.
It's been that way, the past few years. And this is what happens when you have a series of bad draft classes, some bad free agent moves and different things like that. This is what happens. So, I mean, it's a hole that they have to dig out of. And I think that's why Mike Bergonzi, Chad Brinker, like, remember when Joe Dubin, he asked, is this a team that could win the Super Bowl? Like, Borgazzi couldn't say heck no, you know what I mean? Oh yeah, that's obviously the goal, but this is a process, right? And then that lets you know that they have an understanding. And your point about the roster not being deep and having depth is true. And not only does it lack depth, it lacks stars, right? So I mean, there's a lot that has to happen for this team to be in the right situation that they want to be in.
Right. I mean, that's why when they get asked that question, like, I understand you don't want to see Brinker start laughing and, Borgonzi basically kind of brush it off. But you're right. Like the two things you really need if you're going to go be a Super Bowl contender, you need high level star power and you need depth. And the Titans are severely lacking in both of those areas right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, that's a big problem. They have to address it.
And we did mention earlier in the show when talking about running backs that the depth issue can be helped out by having the number one waiver priority of, they're going to set the 53 on cut day, but 49, 50, 51 on that list, I have a pretty good feeling that there's going to be some churning, and maybe you have to be in the top 48 or so, obviously all depending on what position you play, in order to actually have a spot for week one against the Broncos, because the Titans are trying to churn that depth. And you build the roster from the top where you need a good quarterback, you need star receivers, you need good pass rushers, but you also need your fifth cornerback to be playable, because odds are throughout the season, he's going to have to go out there and play some meaningful snaps if you're going to go win some football games.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, X's and O's are good, but the Joes are better. I mean, right. you never see a good coach run away from good players. Well, you rarely see it because obviously, we've seen some cases, but it's rare.
Last thing on the defense, TD, Femi Oladejo didn't really flash a whole lot in this game. And I know the conversation based on practice has been that he's ahead of schedule based on where I think a lot of people thought he would be, being a guy who just switched over to play the edge position midway through his last season at UCLA. But not a great debut for Femi Oladejo. Didn't do a whole lot. They got ran on 178 rushing yards. You mentioned just the one sack. Any reason for concern with Femi if he maybe is more of a project like people were thinking when he was drafted? Or do you think, it's just his first game and we'll start to see him make some more impact plays as we get closer to the regular season?
I think it's the same situation where it's a process. And remember, this is a guy that is flipping, he's flipping positions. And obviously he did it at UCLA, you know what I mean, for 10 games or so. But I mean, it's still a process. And I think you just have to give it time. Would you like to see him get more pressures at the very least? Yeah, definitely. But again, this is first game action. And I think if we're still talking about this same lack of impact, like week 2, week 3, then yeah, you know what? You should start being concerned. Right now, it's one of those things where like, okay, I see some symptoms. Let's see if they could address that right now and keep from it getting worse.
Right. And I don't want to overreact to one preseason game because I feel like you and me, anytime we're on here, always are preaching patience of like, hey, you can't overreact. But obviously, this is the only game that we have to talk about right now. But I think by the end of preseason, 2 weeks from now, after the Vikings game here in Nashville, I think you'll have an idea of what the impact is going to be for a guy like Femi Oladejo. Maybe not completely, because he's hopefully going to grow throughout the season, but in a room that thin, like the edge spot, where it's really just Draymond Jones and Arden Key in terms of veteran guys, and I know we saw Jihad Ward make a play on Saturday, you need Femi Oladejo to at least be somewhat impactful. I'm not saying he has to come out and be defensive rookie of the year, but you really do need him to make plays if that pass rush is going to be, any kind of successful this year, especially from the outside.
Yeah, no doubt about it. You need it. You need it absolutely. And I mean, it's not just from him, right? You need Arden Key to take a step up. But above all else, Jeffrey Simmons.
Yeah.
He's that's it right there. And that's why earlier, when Adam had called and he was talking about the defense, as I said, Jeffrey Simmons, because that's really he's the engine of that defense. And let me tell you this, Jake, that guy, as far as the shape he's in, he looks different. He looks different. I don't know. Did you see that picture I posted of him standing next to Michael Gonzi and Chad Brinkley?
Yep. Yeah, I did.
I'm like, good Lord,
Yeah.
So that's a good thing, at least aesthetically. You know what I mean? We'll see how you could go ahead and get things jumping in the goal to get to finally double-digit sack. They don't have a double-digit sacker. No one on that roster has gotten double digits as an NFL player.
Right.
That's a problem.
And you make a good point of like the pass rush does run through Jeffrey Simmons. Like most teams, it is the elite edge rusher. The Titans don't have one of those. So if somebody is going to get 10, 11, 12 sacks, it has to be Jeffrey Simmons. And obviously we didn't see him on Saturday night. All the talk has been that he's in great shape and he looks like he's in great shape, but he does have to produce this year. And I think if the Titans are going to have an impactful pass rush, Simmons has to get to double digits for the first time. And I know that's a big ask from an interior defensive lineman, but if he's going to be the guy that he claims to be, he's got to back it up with the numbers this season.
Yeah, got to back. The numbers talk, right?
Right.
They talk.
615-737-1025 is our phone number if you want to text or call. We'd love to hear from you. Our phone line's driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. 30 minutes left to go in the show. The Titans falling in their preseason opener on Saturday, 29-7 against Tampa Bay. Now heading to Atlanta, already in Atlanta for joint practices starting tomorrow. TD will be out there. We will talk to TD about what we want to see from the Titans as joint practices continue for Tennessee. Jake Lyman, Teron Davenport, Connor Newton, next man up here on 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Teron Davenport, Connor Newt with you until the top of the hour. Chasing Big Joe coming up at noon. Titans coming off a loss in their preseason opener. To be fair, though, the Titans did go 3-0 in the preseason last year, and we saw where that got them. This week, they are out in Atlanta. 2 joint practices with the Falcons and a game on Friday night. Teron Davenport will be out there at joint practices starting tomorrow morning. TD, I think these next 2 days are going to be really important because, yeah, the preseason games, you get to watch them on TV, and, it looks like it means more. But Cam Ward faced off against the backups for the Buccaneers on Saturday. He faced the starters on Thursday. He'll get a chance to face the Falcons starters over the next couple of days. It would be nice to see him stack a couple of good days together, take care of the ball, and make sure that he's learning from some of the mistakes that he's made. And that starts tomorrow in that first one against the Falcons.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing is stacking those days. And it's funny because I actually just was sending an email. Look, man, like I'm trying to get on TV, you know what I mean? So you got to keep pitching stuff. And one of the things that I pitched was the fact that they've stacked 2 really solid offensive practices. You know what I mean? Since the time Brian Callahan cursed the offense out as they were running sprints, the whole team had to run sprints because of the offense. But he made sure, and he stood where the offense was and cursed them out. But they've done well. So I mean, I think that's something that you do have to do. You got to stack those days, and I mean that's in football life. That's everything, to stack good days, and that's what they've managed to do. Obviously, the game against the Bucs was a little shift from it. If you look at the final result, but there are things within there that you could categorize as wins. So they need to be able to come out and do that tomorrow and Wednesday and roll that into the game. And just like I say, you keep rolling it up and stacking it, and eventually it should lead to something good for you.
Right. A week ago today, the tone around this Titans offense, I think, was completely different. The questions were, is Cam Ward ready to start week 1? Like, will he be ready to start week 1? And Wednesday, he had the 2-minute drill that everybody raved about, saying it was the best he's looked in all of camp, basically. Then Thursday, had a solid practice against Tampa Bay. And then on Saturday, yeah, there were things that you want to improve on, but you finish with a touchdown on his second drive in a preseason game. You feel pretty good. I think the temperature around the city, around Cam Ward, has calmed down a little bit from people freaking out of like, oh man, is he not the guy we thought he was, to, okay, it's starting to show the development. But you're right, it has to continue. And these are 2 great opportunities where you're playing the same defense back-to-back days in these joint practices, and it's not going to be perfect. Like, it would shock me if Cam Ward comes out of these next 2 days and doesn't throw 1 interception. But if we start to see the playmaking ability come out and he limits some of those mistakes, I think we're going to head into Friday's game against the Falcons feeling like, all right, Cam Ward has taken the steps necessary that he's going to be ready for week 1 against the Broncos to step in and immediately be the starter for this team.
Yeah, and it continues to be a building process. And the thing that I like, if you notice, almost from week to week, the focus, the areas that Ward he says he's working to get better at, it changes, right? Back in minicamp, it was like, oh, I had to realize that, these guys diagnose and close so much quicker, and the DBs are faster. So I can't put as much loft on the ball thrown to the outside, et cetera. So then I went from there to, hey, you know what? I got to get used to the spacing. It's somewhat of a different feel. And then when I took that statement and asked him about that the following week, he's like, oh, well, it's the timing. The timing is going to help me with that. And it's not really as much of a different feel. And now it's just, okay, I got to throw guys open. I got to be with more anticipation. The windows are smaller. So you see just an ongoing progression where it's like the carrot that's being dangled. It's being moved in different places, and he's going to chase a whole different one, so to speak. And that's what you want.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. It's like you see some of the issues popping up, and there was the stretch where he threw like 6 interceptions in 5 practices or something like that. But it does seem like, at least from what I've heard, and you've been out there, that they're not all the same thing. Like, it's not every time he's trying to fit a ball in over top of the linebacker and it's getting picked. It seems like maybe that started to work itself out. Things are going to pop up. Like, he's not going to come out and be perfect. He's going to throw, I think you venture to say he's going to throw double-digit picks at a minimum in his rookie season, but it's just about not making the same mistake over and over again, like we saw with Will Levis last year when it came to just trying to do too much. Let's go to our phone lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Jack in East Nashville has been waiting. Jack, thanks for calling. Go ahead.
I've learned not to take these games real seriously. The one thing I wanted to see was, with Cam out there and the lineman that Mr. Borgonzi brought in, if they could keep him clean and if he could hook up, throw to whoever else, and just see what it looked like. To me, it looked like a real professional football team. And that proves what I've thought all along, that if they can keep the owner from losing it and make her stop playing, cutting off these coaches and general managers year after year after year, if they can stop that churn and let this man keep working and bringing in people, it's not going to be this year, but over the next several years, they've got a good, solid chance to turn this into something if they'll stay the course. And that's my takeaways from it.
Thanks for the call, Jack. I think that's a good point, that, they hope that they found the quarterback, and that's the first step. You find the quarterback, you keep him clean for the offensive line. That is a big step in the right direction for the Titans, because they haven't had that for the last couple of seasons.
No, that's a great point. That's a great point right there.
And Cam Ward, like he said, and we talked about Cam Ward and the offensive line in the first hour of the show, that, again, it wasn't the Bucs starters. So you would hope that your starting offensive line is able to keep Cam Ward clean. But the fact that they did it is a step in the right direction. And I liked what I saw from Dan Moore. I liked what I saw from J.C. Latham. Peter Skoronski has been getting rave reviews during training camp. And the Titans were still missing 2 of their starting offensive linemen too. So I think it's a step in the right direction. And like Jack said, that's kind of the bare bones of what I think a lot of people were looking for on Saturday night was, is the offensive line better? And what does Cam Ward look like? And I think both, maybe not massive positives. I don't think you're signing up Cam Ward to be the MVP right now based on that. And you're not saying that he's only going to get sacked twice this year, but it definitely was a positive step for this team, and they got to keep it going.
Yeah, and look, man, that's the catalyst. We talk about Jeffrey Simmons being the engine for the defense. The offensive line is the engine for the offense, right? And you look at everything that has to happen. They need to give Ward time to be able to find the receivers to get open. So, and you got to be able to have the whole playbook open and not be like, oh man, it's 3rd and 15. Like, I just got called running play just to hope that we could survive to be able to punt the ball. Like, you don't want to be in those situations, and I think it starts with the offensive line.
Yeah, and we saw that on Saturday. Again, small sample size, not against the elite players that the Bucs have, but first play of that second drive, Callahan wasn't running the ball into the line just trying to stay ahead of the sticks. They ran a shot play and they got 27 yards on it. And then on the 1st and 20 after the holding penalty, they let Cam Ward rip it twice and they moved the sticks. Like that's progress from last year where we've talked about this before, TD. It kind of did feel like Brian Callahan's play calling was scared of his offensive line and scared of what his quarterback might do.
Right. And that's why I can't put the full liability from last year on the head coach, because what he wanted to do, I don't think was what he could do. And I mean, like when you can't have 7 step, like you got to go to max, super max protection just to get to 7 step. Like that's bad, man. You need to be able to trust your guys up front to win man on man, right? And they couldn't trust at least Nicholas Petit Ferrer and Jalen Duncan, who's gotten better. Like you couldn't trust those guys to hold it down on the right side, and it just ended up being a catastrophe. And that's where a lot of pressure came from.
Yeah, I mean, the Titans are going to give up sacks this year, but it does seem, at least based on what we've seen in preseason and training camp so far, it's not going to be like the last 2 years. And every time I talk about the offensive line, I think of two plays. Nicholas Petit-Frere just getting blown up against the Packers last year, and against the Browns 2 years ago when the Titans just kept running a tight end back and forth to try and chip Myles Garrett. Like, hopefully, like Myles Garrett's still a guy that you need to help out your tackles with, but hopefully it's not that dire this year based on what we've seen. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Last call for phones. Final segment coming up. We'll continue to preview the joint practices coming up in Atlanta and wrap up the show with TD. Jake Lyman, Teron Davenport, Connor Newton, next man up, 1025 The Game. Wrapping up the show on this Monday. Been a fun one with Teron Davenport, Jake Lyman, Connor Newt here in studio. Here on Next Man Up, Chasing Big Joe coming up right after us. TD, before we get out of here, did want to mention, we talked a little bit about Lloyd Cushenberry coming back from injury, possibly this week, chance that he's activated off the PUP list. L'Jarius Sneed, Brian Callahan said it's probably unlikely that we see him this week. Is it concerning that he's still not ready from what they described as a knee cleanup surgery in May?
Yeah, it is concerning. I think that's something to look at. You obviously knew coming in that he was going to be on a management plan, and that's when everything was right and all things being equal. But obviously, with these situations arising, it is something to be concerned about. You want to see him get involved. I mean, I watched him, walk around, and unfortunately, we weren't able to talk to him at all because he was kind of like on the move, but didn't appear to walk okay. Like there's nothing there, and I watched him, do some light running over on the side field the day after they signed Quandre Diggs, and everything seemed, like he was not at full functionability, but he seemed to be able to move around okay. So I would be concerned, man, because you want to know, like, at what point is he going to be able to come back?
Yeah, and like it's obviously it's tough to compare. Everybody's injuries are different, but it's like, man,
Right.
Lloyd Cushenberry is coming back from a torn Achilles, and he's going to make it back out on the field before L'Jarius Sneed. I think where I'm kind of going with it is, yeah, there's a chance L'Jarius Sneed gets out onto the field this year early in the season, but like, I don't think he's going to practice much, if at all, during the weeks, because if he's not out there practicing now, maybe they are just saying, you know what, kind of like what we saw last year, where it's like L'Jarius Sneed is going to be a DNP on Wednesday, DNP on Thursday, limited on Friday, questionable for the game, and then he'll be active, and we'll see how he does.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what it's deteriorated to, where it's like, okay, not much practice, hope for the game. I think that's the the way they're looking at it.
And it's tough because the cornerback position, you like Jarvis Brownlee. Like Brownlee's, I feel good about him being a starting cornerback. Roger McCreary is great in the nickel spot. Darrell Baker is fine, but I would feel way better if he's one of your backups on the outside than a starter. But we're to the point where you just can't count on anything from L'Jarius Sneed. And if you get something, great. But if he's not back at this point and out on the practice field, I just can't imagine that he's going to be out there all that much throughout the preseason. And I guess we'll just have to see what happens when they get ready for Denver in week 1.
Yeah, honestly, at this point, anything you get is bonus now, because I mean, how could you even expect to get anything out of him right now? It just doesn't seem like that's much of an option, and it's terribly frustrating if you're a Titans fan, because you want to see your team make a big move and it pay off, not set you back.
Right. Like last year, the Titans, and we can talk about the timing of it and whether it was the right time to make a big move like that. It wasn't, but they did go out. They traded a 3rd-round pick for a guy who was supposed to be one of the elite cornerbacks in all of football. And at this point, you've gotten 4 games out of him, missed all the rest of last season. He's got legal issues off the field, and you're not sure he's going to play this year. And if he does play, like, how effective is he going to be? It's hard not to expect anything other, or it's hard to expect anything other than them getting out of his contract with whatever out it is after this year. I think it's like 8 or 9 million in dead cap, but like, unless he comes back and has a comeback player of the year type season, like, you might as well just eat whatever dead money it is, take your savings and move on.
And this is why, honestly, I really thought that they would draft Quincy Riley. He came here for a visit. There was clear interest. They got him in the 4th round. They made 3 4th-round picks. Now, I'm not saying, hey, get Gunnar Helm out of there and get Riley in there. But I mean, like, why not get? And Marcus Harris has been playing mostly on the outside, so he's an outside corner. I just think Quincy Riley, he's already got 2 interceptions this camp with the Saints, and I think he would have been a really good pick for them to make. And hey, look, former teammate of Brownlee Jr., so he's going to come in and get up under a wing and be ready to go.
Yeah, it does feel like there's less concern in that building than there is from everybody outside when it comes to L'Jarius Sneed, because you're right, they really didn't do much to help that position this offseason. I mean, you cut Chidobe Awuzie, you didn't bring any kind of veteran depth in at corner, and you didn't really draft anybody. I mean, you got Marcus Harris, but how much can you really expect from a 6th-round rookie? So maybe they feel better about Sneed being able to come back in, just jump in and be a starting level cornerback. I think everybody else is kind of in wait and see mode. I did look up his contract potential out after this year. You have to eat $8 million in dead cap, but you save $12 million against the cap next year. So I think, that's, unless something changes drastically over the next couple months, I think that's probably where the Titans end up going.
Yeah, no doubt about it. That's probably where they end up going. And can you really blame them? No.
Right. TD, thanks for hanging out with us today. Appreciate you moving the schedule around a little bit. Usually it's TD Tuesdays, and don't forget that's what it's going to be moving forward. Every Tuesday here on Next Man Up, TD will be with us for all 3 hours. But with joint practices tomorrow, had to move it up. It's been fun reacting to the preseason game, and we'll make sure everybody follows along with you tomorrow as the Titans hit the practice field in Georgia.
Yeah, for sure. And shout out Tom Miller in the YouTube chat, man. A lot of interaction. Appreciate you, Tom. I'm glad you enjoyed the experience in Tampa. Hey, man, hopefully we could catch up here in Atlanta.
Yeah, Tom Miller, it looks like he was sitting with a lot of players' families out there. So appreciate his interaction in the YouTube chat. Appreciate everybody who chimed in on our phone lines. We'll be back tomorrow reacting to the Titans joint practices in Atlanta. Also, the AP Top 25 was just released for college football. We'll dive into that as well. That does it for us. Chase and Big Joe coming up next on 102.5 The Game.